frankly, whoever chose this year's theme of togetherness chose extremely wisely. Over the past few months, we've become very used to the phrase social distancing. But actually, the lockdown has made us keenly aware that whilst we may have to be physically distant from each other, we still have a deep human need to be as close to each other socially as we can, to be together.
There's a famous phrase that was coined actually by the Scottish author Robert Burns 250 years ago that talks about man's inhumanity to man. And it only takes a look around some of the things that we hear about around the world to realise that there are atrocities, unspeakable atrocities, going on everywhere and have always done. But today, we're focusing not on man's inhumanity to man, but on man's humanity to man.
The current situation allows us all to reflect upon what is truly important in our lives and to cherish everything we may have taken for granted.
Early on in the lockdown, one of my colleagues shared that really we shouldn't use the term social distancing, but physical distancing and social connectedness. And I think this gathering shows that. I think it's amazing how in lockdown we've been able to connect despite the physical distance and the darkness that we're facing as a people and individually.
I believe that the rich diversity of this country has enabled us to stand together in these most difficult times in recent history. I've seen solidarity, I've seen compassion, and I've seen a resurgence in community spirit.
What I was also really pleased to see was the amount of community activity and the way the community came together and supported the most vulnerable in our society.
This is a time when we really bring together communities of all backgrounds, people of all faiths and even of no faith, to break down barriers, to have a better understanding of each other.
And we've had to work out, what does it mean as people of faith, for whom the gathering is so important, to find our spirituality, to find our life when we have to stay separate physically from one another. And it's been great seeing how different communities have responded to those challenges.
And one of the really heartening things about it has been the way that the churches and the mosques and the local authorities and the community organisations and many other players, including those of all faiths, have worked together on this for the common good. We've shown that we can do this together really well, and that's a wonderful thing. It really heartens us and builds our sense of society.
This is our opportunity to ask within ourselves, what is it that I can do? What have I to offer in this situation? In the stillness of our hearts, if we are patient, we will receive the answer and be given the energy and calmness to act.
Contemplation, consideration is important going forward. But that contemplation doesn't need to be alone. And sometimes it needs to be together internationally and within our community.
The virus has not just made us understand our fragility, it has also highlighted the need for us to unite as brothers and sisters, as we can't come out of this separately.
There's a global pandemic. There is climate change that affects all of us. There'll now be a recession which affects all of us. But we're not responding together now, not as effectively as once we would have done. We are very much nation states where people are pursuing their own agendas and sometimes, instead of working together, are working in contradiction with each other. So one of the challenges for us is to face our global problems together with one another.
The choice is either we build a world of cooperation, solidarity, sharing of resources and expertise to address this global challenge, or alternatively, a world of competition in which nation states compete for national interests at the cost of the welfare of our planet.
That we as a globe are fracturing as a group of nations. And this is something that I think has been laid bare by coronavirus, because the only way that we are going to be able to find our way through as a country and as a globe is to work together.
And as we come out of this global crisis, we must ask ourselves some really challenging questions. And it will take strong, visionary, and wise leadership to grasp the situation, so that rather than letting the blame culture find scapegoats, the world takes responsibility for our God-given commission to care for this creation.
And I think we've often been made to believe over the last month or so that the corona pandemic impacts us all in the same way or to the same extent. And unfortunately, this has been far from the truth.
My question is, when we are all standing together as we sit together tonight, how do we ensure we include those unable to stand in the first place?
Is that there are a lot of socially isolated people that were isolated prior to this pandemic and are actually feeling it a lot more now.
There are many vulnerable people who do not have that contact even at the end of the day, and therefore the support given to them to help the way through isolation is ever more critical this year than before.
So I have to say, I would love to be optimistic about the future. I would love to think that there will be a change. I would love to think that we're going to invest large amounts of money in structures to enable those people at the bottom, the working poor, to actually do something positively, to have homes that they can live in, to have homes that they can actually live in for more than 6 months. But I suspect many of us in the charity sector think we're facing a very bitter future.
And so my hope is that whatever the other side of this pandemic is like, and who knows when that's going to happen and what it will be like, that it will not be a return to normality. Because normality has not been fair, as we have seen.
I mean, the painter Van Gogh said that things are done, great things are done by a series of smaller things done together. So standing together, it's not something that's just fixed in time, it's a process. And great things come from having trust in this process.
It is so important in these seasons, as others have said, that we stand together across our whole community, that we gather the positive lessons of this season, and that we take them forward with us.
The work of the Dialogue Site as a volunteer has been very much about bringing people together from different backgrounds, faith backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, and about bridging the divides that are ordinarily there. So we need to be aware, and I think that the pandemic, what it's done it's heightened our sense of awareness of our neighbours, of our communities, and what we've got to make sure is that when we go beyond the lockdown, and when we've, beyond this 6 months or year, that we make sure that we continue the good works that we've started.
This is a moment of prayer for those who experience hunger by faith or circumstance. May that hunger pass. May the spirit of surrender be a stepping stone to a moment of discovery on the journey of life. May compassion and sacrifice be companions to us all, and when the journey is made, may the ways of those gentle paths become evident, so we can learn to trust that in life and death, there is always love, love without end.